Just wanted to welcome everybody to a celebration of the life of Anne Conlon. We have a few things that we'd like to show. One thing would be her story of her telling about meeting Mayor Baba. And then Karen Talbot has a wonderful bio of her life. And then we'll open up for sharing, for memories and stories. Just an amazing woman. I have such deep feelings for Anne. So that's how we will proceed. And I'm going to ask everybody to mute themselves if you haven't. And we'll just start with Anne's voice first. And a big Che Baba to everyone.
And he took me to Victoria Station. He found the station master. I sat in the station master's office until the train came. He put me on the train. Found another passenger who could tell me when we got to Pune and when to get off. When we got to Pune, the only thing I ever had to do on that whole trip by myself was get a taxi cab and get to the Napier Hotel. The only thing I had to handle. And I walked into the hotel, walked up to the desk, and I didn't identify myself. I said to the man at the desk, I need a telephone. And he picked up the phone and he dialed. And he listened. He handed me the receiver, and it was Erich on the other end. They had called the hotel. And Erich said that Baba had said I was to wait at the hotel till 3:30, and one of them would come for me an hour before the darshan started. And it was Meherji, lovely Meherji, who came to pick me up and drove me out to Guru Prasad. And even if you had never been there, you've all seen pictures of it. And there was a long driveway that went up to the front of Guru Prasad and curved under a portico. The car would stop, and when you get out, you were facing these big double doors into the main hall on the other side of the veranda. So I got out of Meherji's car on that side near the steps. Got out, bent over, and when I stood up and I looked, the doors were open, and there was Baba sitting at the back of that hall. And I went running past Meherji, running up the steps. And when I stepped over that threshold, I felt again that same wave of love that I had felt in the lagoon cabin, only it was so powerful, so overwhelming, that it stopped me in my tracks, and my legs started shaking. You know, and I just stood there, and then Baba put out his arms and, come on. And I went running into his arms and burst into tears. And, you know, it takes half a minute to tell what happened, but it all was right there all at once, like it was the first time I had a home. And I grew up as a middle child. I always thought I had brought myself up. I tried to be very quiet, stay out of the way, right? Grow up without anybody noticing. And I realized in that moment he had always been there. He had raised me, had always taken care of me. He always would. And for the first time in my life, I felt completely loved, completely accepted, and utterly safe. And I knew that that's the way it was, that's the way it was going to be. And it was an absolute guarantee. That was always going to be there. And it was like my mind came to a screeching halt. Because I let go of everything. I didn't have to think about anything. Because I was with him and I was safe. And when I stepped back from that embrace, Baba had tears in his eyes. He was crying. And I stood there, looked at him, and he looked at me, and he nodded. And I nodded back. And he said, do you have any questions? No, Baba. No questions. I had already known too many people who had asked advice of Baba, not taken it, and gotten themselves into a lot of trouble. So I figured if there was anything he wanted me to know, he would tell me in his own good time, and I wasn't going to push him. And then he called, the women had been in Mara's room, and there was a louvered door from her room into that hall, so they had watched my meeting with Baba, and he began to call them out. He introduced Mara, and he said, "She loves me best. Mani, go here." When I came in, I hadn't seen her. Because when I first came into that hall, I didn't see anybody but Baba, and then all I saw were his eyes. There was nothing else in the room. Those eyes filled the room, and there were shafts of light coming out from behind his eyes. And I thought, if he drops his eyes, if he closes them, I'll drown in that light. You know, and then it was just, again, one of those things that never happened to me. I'd never had an experience like that. But then later I became aware Dr. Goha was there. She was standing behind Baba. Erich came out. Mayurji came in behind me. And then he began calling the women. And finally, I have lost a lot of what happened in that original hour. You know, it's gone from my memory, but I think a lot of it was, you know, was the trip good? Did you sleep well? Have you eaten well? The courtesy things that Baba always asked his visitors. And finally he told me, he said, you sit at my feet. And I sat down there, and he said, "Now, did you read the family letter?" And I thought, well, he's going to throw me out, and I could care less. I had seen him. I've had 5 minutes. It's more than I ever thought I'd have. You know, that's fine. And I said, "Yes, Baba, I had read it." He said, "What did it say?" I said, "Well, Baba, you said people shouldn't come a great distance or a great expense." And he said, "You came anyway?" I said, "Yes, Baba." He said, "It's all right. I'm glad you came in spite of the letter." And I said, "So now what are you going to do when you leave here this afternoon?" And I misunderstood. I thought he was asking what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I just said, "Well, I guess I'm going back to work." And he said, No, this afternoon. What are you going to do?" Well, Air India had already told me I didn't have a chance of getting back to Bombay to get that 1 a.m. flight back to New York. There was no way. There were no flights from Pune to Bombay at the time. It would have to be train or car, and there was no way to make it. And Air India was not going to fly back to New York again for 5 days. Bless their little hearts. So what I had figured was, well, you know, I'll probably have to just go sit in a hotel somewhere and wait. And I told Baba that. I said, "I guess I can just go sit in a hotel." And he said, "No sightseeing." I said, "No, Baba, I know that." He said, "Well, you won't sit in a hotel for 5 days. You will come here every day and sit with me until the plane goes." And as it happened, Air India's next flight was going to be the day after that Sahabas ended, so that I would be there until the end of that Sahabas. And Baba said, "Now what will your office say if you stay?" I said, "Well, Baba, they couldn't understand why I was just coming. I was going to be here less than 20 hours. And they said, if I wanted to stay longer, to cable them." He said, "Make sure you do." So by that time, that hour had gone, and they were ready to open the doors to let this mob in. And Baba said, "You know, sit closer to my feet or you'll get crushed." Well, they opened the doors in the back, and there were windows on either side of that door with about this high off the floor, and they were also open. So the moment they opened the doors, people also started diving through the windows and running toward Baba as fast as they could go. Absolutely no decorum whatsoever, and he loved it. He sat up there and he slapped his knee and he laughed. Just loved it. And I turned around at one point. I was looking over my shoulder at this crowd, and I see this woman bearing down on me. And she got to me, and she planted her hand on top of my head, used me for a pivot, and swung herself over me to get behind Baba. And sat herself down behind his chair. And there were children who had gotten separated from their parents, and they were being passed overhead, through that mob. It was wonderful, and Baba was enjoying every minute of it. So everybody settled down, and Baba had said he did not want to give any discourses. He wasn't breaking his seclusion. He was inviting people into it. And in order to help him keep it, he didn't want to give any discourses. He didn't want to be asked any questions. We were just to be there with him. So some of the Indians who had come, the different groups, had planned entertainment for him. And this day there was a young lady there, a singer from Bombay. And Baba asked her to sing a song for me about Mira. And he asked me, do you know who Mira is? And I didn't. And this is a story that he often told people and would tell different parts of it. But he said Mira was a Hindu saint who had given up a kingdom, a family, everything she had, to spend her life wandering, singing the praises of her Lord Krishna. And he got very serious, and it was the only serious moment in the whole 5 days. And he said, Mira never put anyone or anything between herself and Krishna. And he repeated it. And I got the point. That he was saying, I am your Krishna. You will never put anyone or anything between us. Only serious moment in the whole 5 days. The rest of it was just tremendous gales of laughter the whole 5 days. With Baba, laughing and taking part in this. His twin nephews putting on a skit. One of them played Baba and one played Erich. There are pictures of this, Baba laughing so hard that he was in tears, and you could see the pictures with his handkerchief up to his eyes. These kids were so funny. And an interesting sidelight to that took place on a day when after Fred Winnefeld had arrived. Now Fred had a sense of humor, but this hit him the wrong way. He thought it was sacrilegious. And he couldn't see how hard Baba was laughing, how everybody else was laughing, how the Mandali were laughing. He thought it was wrong. But he said about 24 hours later, it hit him. He had a heck of a nerve seeing this as sacrilegious when Baba was sitting up there laughing his heart out and being tremendously entertained by these kids. Well, then at another point, Baba asked me if I knew why St. Francis loved Jesus more than Peter did. And he said it was because Francis never met Jesus. That his love and his longing was that much stronger because he never knew him. And how moved I was by that, for Baba to tell me after waiting 5 years, being jealous of everybody else who had met him, hating them. And to me, it was a very, very sweet thing to do. And at another point, he asked me if I'd read any of his books. And there wasn't a great deal available then, but I had read The Perfect Master. God Speaks was out by that time. I didn't mention it. I said I had read the original 5-volume discourses. I had found God's Man. I'd read Avatar, Perfect Master, and I stopped. He said, have you read God Speaks? And I said, well, Baba, I tried. And I got to page 64, and I didn't understand a word. And he laughed. I heard him I heard that chuckle, which people sometimes heard in his throat. It was just a sort of thing, and his hands went up like this, laughed. He said, "Never mind, it's not important, don't bother." And I had never been able to get through it. And it was, because at the time he'd asked everybody to read it, told everybody to read it, told some people they had to understand it. So I've never been able to do it. Well, that first day, toward the end of it, his hour became 6. And I was never any good at sitting in the lotus position on the floor. And I began to get up. And Baba noticed. I started moving around. He saved me from a great embarrassment, because what I was about to do, not having my shoes on, was to stick my feet in him, which I did not know was a no-no. Had no idea. And he caught it. And what he did to save me embarrassment, he didn't care, but he knew what would happen if I did it in front of all those Indians who knew I shouldn't be doing it. He just reached in. We are born to this, and you are not, and there is no reason for you to be uncomfortable. And he said, "We will have a chair brought for you." And he caught it, before I just, without knowing, did something terrible. So he had a chair brought and put against the sidewall, and had Ronald Gailey come out and sit with me so she could interpret much of what was being said was in many different languages. So she was sitting on my left, and I'm sitting here, and we are now looking at Baba sort of in half profile. And I just sat there and I stared directly at him, and I never took my eyes off him, because Liz had warned me. She said, "Never take your eyes off him, because the moment you do, he'll turn and he'll look at you and you'll miss it." And it had happened to her in 58. She kept thinking Baba never looked at her. And later people told her, "But he did, and you were looking the other way." So I just sat there and I just stared at him. And every once in a while, he was so quick. He would whip around. "Are you happy?" Over and over. "Are you happy? Are you happy?" And Ronald would give me a little nudge. "Answer him." And of course I was ecstatic. "Yes, Mom. Yes, Papa." Well, that day finally, I think, went on till 10 o'clock. And I found being with Baba, that vitality around him, so completely exhausting. When I went back to the hotel, I just went straight to bed without any dinner, and I went to sleep like that. And the next morning, this is the second morning, I heard this shouting downstairs, and that was Fred's arrival. He was barreling up the stairs, yelling for me, and we did this jig out on the hotel balcony. We were both there. Baba had not asked me how I had gotten to India, didn't say a word about it. But Fred got to see Baba by himself that morning. And Baba said, "Fred, how did Ann get here?" So Fred told him the story about Jenny and Liz giving me the money, giving up their own chance to go. And Baba had tears running down his cheeks. And he said to Fred, "Baba is touched by such love for Baba and for a friend." And then he said to Fred, "Fred, I love Ann very much." Some of you knew Fred, and some of you have seen pictures of him. He's quite short, very precise. He came running back to the Napier Hotel, came banging on my door. And he stood there with his feet apart, and leaned forward like that, with his hands at the side, and said, "Baba says, Fred, I love Ann very much." And then he stood back and he just grinned, It was his first thought, he had to deliver that message. Well, that afternoon, when I saw Baba, Baba said, Fred told me how you got here. Told me what the girls had done. He said, all helped you. And I said, yes, Baba. And he said, all helped you because I helped you. I wanted you to come. And he said, now I have sent a cable to Ginny and Liz. Well, that morning I had tried to write a cable to them. I wanted to tell them that I had seen Baba. And I couldn't find the words. I just didn't have them. So what Baba did, he sent him a cable, all right, and signed my name to it. And it said, Baba says, because you have helped me come to Baba, you have made Baba come closer to you. Baba sends his love to you both. He signed it, Love Ann. And then he had Erich give me a copy of it, and he said, do you think they'll like it? Well, now that Fred was there were two of us sitting against the wall and cheered. And again, there were 1,000 people lined up to come up to Baba for darshan. We were sitting there with Rana watching it. And all of a sudden I heard Arnavaz Dada Chanji from the back of the room call out, Harry? And Harry Kenmore had arrived unannounced, come out by taxi and just got in line. There he was, walking up to Baba. Baba said, Harry, what are you doing here? And Harry said, I've come to see my dear Pop. And Baba said, well, your dear Pop is very happy to see his dear son. And then there were three of us sitting against the wall. So, and it was obvious, some of the Easterners were very curious about who these three people were. And Baba decided to introduce us. And he said, this is Fred Winterfeld from New York, Harry Kenmore from New York, and Ann Conlon from the United States. And he said, why would she have come such a great distance to see me when she had never seen me? Her love brought her, and that love is my gift to her. It was like over and over, Baba confirmed for me everything that I had felt in those years before I'd met him, confirmed that gift I knew he'd given me in the lagoon cabin. Well, finally came the last day, and Baba insisted that we all go back to New York together. Fred, Harry, and myself, and he'd already had their tickets changed to get him on the same flight that I was going to be on. And we were with him the last morning of the actual darshan when Mayerji came running in to say that he'd just had a cable from the Luck Boys that they were to arrive late that afternoon. And this whole thing, and Baba used to stir things up when somebody was in a little bit of trouble and they might not make it or get someplace. And he kept saying, they're not going to make it. They cannot get here in time. With everybody running around in circles. And in the middle of that big hall, everybody is in charge of everything, is trying to figure out what to do to get the Lux there on time. And I was just standing there enjoying the opportunity to stand there and look at Baba. And Baba looked at me and he went, they're crazy. But they got there 10 minutes before that last hour. They came running into the Napier Hotel as Adi was picking up Fred and me and Harry. And so we all went out to Guru Prasad for that last afternoon. And Baba, because Irwin and Edward's first meeting with Baba, they were there only for that last hour. He let them sit at his feet and hold a pillow over his feet so nobody would bow down and touch his feet. And I will never forget the expression on Edward's face that he sat there and he looked up at Baba with his mouth open for 5 hours. Never moved. Just in total awe. And then Irwin asked Baba for God realization. And Baba said, we won't talk about that now, listen to the music. Well, on this last afternoon, there were 5,000 people trying to get into Guru Prasad because they had been smart enough when Baba had said, you know, you get your hour anytime in those 2 weeks and then you go straight home. Some of them were smart enough to know that he might change his mind. So they had stayed in Pune. And on the last day, he sent out the word that anyone who was still there, whether they had had their hour or not, must come that afternoon to receive prasad. They were to receive it, and they were to leave at once. So it came my turn to go up and get prasad, and I had this instinct. I wanted to kiss his hand. So as he was handing me the prasad, it was spontaneous. I leaned down to kiss his hand, and his arm was much lighter than I thought it was, and I was moving too fast. And I punched myself right in the teeth with his fist, with his knuckles. And of course, oh my God, I've skinned his knuckles. But he never let on. He did not make any sign that anything had happened. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. But I took the prasad, and I started walking out of Guru Prasad. And I felt this hand on the back of my neck. And it was Rano. She said, he didn't mean you, dummy. Go back and sit down. You're not supposed to leave. So that we were all there until it was all over, and Baba had seen every single person who had come that afternoon. At the end of it, he said that Meherji and Adi were to bring Fred, Harry, the Lux, and me back to him in the morning to say goodbye, then we would be driven to Bombay, put on the plane home. Now, I knew better. I knew I was as full as it was going to get that time, but I did not want to leave. And so when I went to say goodbye to Baba, I was crying. And I went up to him for his embrace, and he had a disturbed look on his face. And I knew I had caused it, but I didn't really understand it. And the goodbye was very quick. I mean, Rano was the bouncer in those years. You said goodbye, and she got you out the door. And it was very fast. I was aware of that sort of frown on Baba's face. I didn't get it, and I didn't dwell on it. I did remember it after I got home.
All right, well, it's a little bit of a cliffhanger, but we're going to stop there. And Karen Talbot, do you want to go ahead and do the bio for us? Jai Baba.
Jai Baba to everyone.
You might want to focus your camera just a little bit down so we can, there, that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay. That was mesmerizing and wonderful. Jai Baba. Anne was born in 1932 and she passed October 19th, 2005.
Higher, Karen, you can't see your face.
Oh, okay. Is that better? I can't.
No, here.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah,
okay. So she was brought up in a Catholic family, and she first heard of Baba in 1956. After Baba had been in the US, she met two women in New York who had met Baba on his visit, Ginny Sadowski and Liz Sakalis. Ginny worked for the same newspaper that Anne worked for. Ginny worked from home, and Anne would pick up her work. So when Anne went to Ginny's house, she saw a picture of Baba on Ginny's refrigerator door. She thought Baba had the kindest eyes she'd ever saw. Ginny was very shy when talking about Baba. But her younger sister Liz wasn't. And Liz just said to Anne, "He is the Christ." Anne said she accepted it immediately. She began attending the Monday night meetings at the home of Fred and Ella Winterfeld in New York. There she met Margaret Krask, Beryl Williams, many other Baba lovers at that time. In 1958, Baba said to come see him at the Meher Center if you truly loved him. Anne said she didn't know what love was. She didn't feel she could answer honestly, so she didn't attend. But she knew she had missed a prime opportunity to see him. When Baba was in Myrtle Beach, Anne had a dream of Baba. In the dream, Baba said to her, "Are you coming or not?" So while she missed that first meeting, this led to her first visit to the Meher Spiritual Center in 1958, just a few weeks after Baba left, and she went with Liz. At this time, Kitty and Elizabeth lived at Yopan Dunes. So when someone came as a visitor, Baba ordered that one of them should spend the night. So Kitty slept each night when they were there. And they were basically it, with Frank Eaton as the caretaker. Anne waited and waited, hoping to hear that Baba would be coming again. And as she mentioned in the video that we just saw, she was so envious of anyone who had met Meher Baba that she would leave the room when someone started to talk about this, which really gives a sense of how much it meant to her, how much she wanted to see him. They heard about an opportunity to come for 1 hour on any day over a 2-week period at the Fred and Ella Monday night meeting. This was 9 days. And only 9 days were left out of the 2 weeks at this time. So most of the people thought this was only for Easterners because it would be so difficult to get everything together. But Anne felt this was for her and she must go. Her boss gave everything fell into place easily. Her boss gave her time off and said, if you end up staying longer, we understand going to India for a weekend is a short period and you might want to stay longer. Ginny and Liz gave her the money for the trip, their money, and that was very touching. The passport office rushed her passport and visa. Air India arranged for her to be met in Bombay and brought to Pune. She was helped every step of the way. And then when she got there, Baba ended up allowing her to stay for the additional 5 days of the darshan. Baba called the Westerners who flew to India in 1961 on a moment's notice for the chance to have 5 minutes with Baba, a test of the daring of the lover. Anne said, I never felt so at home, never so loved, never so safe as I did during those 5 days. Certainly, they were the most exciting days of my life. 18 months later, Baba sent out another invitation to come to India for the 1962 East-West gathering. This time, Anne went with Liz. Anne felt that she had been very spoiled during the 1961 visit. To her, the East-West gathering was extremely crowded. There were just too many Westerners there. But her final embrace with Baba was memorable. And that truly was the last time that she did see Baba in the body. She saw Mirzad for the first time in 1962 when Baba sent them to visit there after the gathering. She wrote, when they first arrived at the gates at Mirzad, the must 12 coats was sitting there. He folded his hands in a namaste to each of them. Between the fingers of one hand was a burning cigarette. He was completely unaware that the cigarette was burning his fingers. Someone suggested Anne give him another cigarette, which she did. And she got another namaste gesture in return from 12 coats. When Anne learned that Baba had dropped his body January 31st, 1969, she was at Liz's house. Before he dropped his body, she yearned to see him. Now she felt that Baba was free to always be with her. I'm going to talk about some of her reminiscences. In the fall of 1971, she went back to India. She hadn't been back there since the 1962 East-West gathering. Of her visit in 1971, Anne said, "I have been to Mehrabad many times, but I remember it best the way it was in 1971. Simple, austere, fiercely beautiful, still much as it was when Meher Baba walked up that hill." Anne met Padre in 62 when Baba sent them to Mehrabad and Merazad, but she didn't remember him very well. She got to know Padre when she returned in 1971. Anne was at Mehrabad when the marble slab imported from Italy was laid in the Samadhi. She was staying at Lower Mehrabad at the time. Padre announced no one, including the Mandali, were to come to Mehrabad that morning. But he told Anne and a friend that they could come because he knew they wouldn't try to tell him what to do. So she was there for that. She remembers cleaning the Samadhi with Mansari, having tea with Mansari, and all the birds flying in and out of Mansari's kitchen. At Merazad, the first Mandali member to meet Anne when she was there in 1961 was Rano Gailey. Their friendship blossomed, and Anne ended up editing her book. Anne wrote, "I have never forgotten one day sitting with Goher on the floor of her small dispensary," and this was pre-clinic, "while she mixed medicine with a mortar and pestle. Because there were so few there, all the women could have tea with Mera each time." She also went up to Seclusion Hill. One day, Erich persuaded an ox cart driver to come by and give some of them a ride. She wrote, "It was one of the most spine-rattling experiences of my life." She remembers Baba's birthday at Merazad, marked by wonderful parties on the veranda, including plays, balloons, acrobatics by the children, and a big chocolate cake brought from Bombay, prasad given out in front of Baba's Mandali Hall chair. One birthday party had a circus theme, highlighted by a very lifelike elephant costume inhabited by 2 Western residents of Mehrabad. Okay, and now in 1971, she did move to Myrtle Beach. And what Anne said about the center was, "There are times when a sense of his presence is so powerful that one expects him to come striding along the path at any moment." She worked at the center's Gateway office from 1976 to 1983. She had volunteered for a few years before that. Her first full-time job was as the Gateway secretary, and it was supposed to be temporary. She was only there a few months when Fred died, a heartfelt loss for all those guests who had experienced Fred's bear hug welcome and sympathetic ear. Suddenly, she was thrust into that role. For the first 5 years, Elizabeth was alive. She counted those 5 years as an invaluable education in how one should serve Meher Baba. She wrote, "Elizabeth was a total hands-on manager, checking every detail, right down to counting the silverware in the kitchens to make sure there was enough." Anne met Margaret Krask in 1956 at the Monday night meetings. She also helped care for Margaret at the end of Margaret's life. Sheila Krinsky suggested that Anne write a biography of Margaret Krask. Anne wanted the biography to be a history of Margaret's life with Meher Baba, and also an inclusion of her personal dance life and dance world. In 2004, Anne received a lung cancer diagnosis. During this difficult time in her life, she wrote that Meher Baba flooded her with help from every direction, imaginable and unimaginable. She wrote, Adi said, Baba doesn't change our karma, but he moves mountains to modify it. There are many articles that Anne Conlon wrote for Sheriar Press that you can find at sheriarbooks.com. And what they wrote on that website is Anne met Meher Baba in India in 1961 and 1962. She was a reporter and editor for a New York State newspaper for many years before moving to Myrtle Beach in 1971, worked at the Meher Spiritual Center for 7 years, and at Sheriar Press's book division for 15. She was a member of the Meher Spiritual Center Board of Directors and a member of the Sheriar Foundation Board of Directors. She passed away on October 19th, 2005. I'd like to end with what she said about Meher Baba. Now it's like a good old marriage, quiet, comfortable, and familiar. But he can still totally surprise me every day. And those surprises are like bouquets, whose scent of jasmine and roses lingers on the air for a long, long time. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Karen, once again, you've just outdone yourself. That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, you filled in all the blanks and then touched the heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, would like to ask people to share now. We do ask that people raise their hand digitally if you know how. I'll put it in the chat. You hit Alt Y on a PC, Option Y on a Mac, and there's a reaction button at inside the reaction button. There's a raise hand function. But anyway, that's how it goes. It's set up, and I see Bob Aarons already has his hand, so we'll go to Bob first. Jai Baba.
Okay. Thank you. That was lovely and beautiful. Film brings her back so vividly. She was. I happened to join the board of directors when she did. She and I and Rick Chapman joined the board of directors in 1995. It was in January of 1995. It was a tumultuous time. Jane and Charles Haynes had just resigned a few weeks before. So it was one of those moments, as during the pandemic, when the board suddenly, everybody realizes there's a board of directors. And she became a leader on the board. She had a solid head and a good sense of how to best lead the center in a way that was as open as possible without really offending too many people. She had a great sense of humor, which did offend people sometimes, I would say. But she was fun, a lot of fun, and that was a fun time for me back in those days, and also to be able to get to know her.
Jai Baba. If you think of anything else, feel free. Yeah, such a huge heart. I just remember her hugs, just such a huge heart. And Sheila, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know everybody's wondering if you've got anything to share. It's up to you.
I've been thinking, you know, since I knew this was happening, what to say, and I couldn't think of a thing except Anne was just a great person. You know, you just knew uh, she was rooted in Baba, and that was that, you know, and she was fun anyway, you know, so it was great. It was great. I don't know what else to say, you know. She lived down the street from me, and we'd go for walks, and she'd come over, and eventually I built my house in Briarcliff, and just at that time, her house was not going to be available anymore, so I built a apartment on for her. So we continued living near each other until she passed on. So it was a very long association. And I remember when we first met, she had not been very well. She had just was down to the center for a visit. She had just left her job. She was going through a real upheaval. And I remember people said, talk very quietly around her. Don't talk too loud. And then we got to be friends. I don't know what else to say about her. Yeah.
You don't know what quiet is, right, Sheila?
That's right. I had to hold myself back.
I was going to ask how that went. That would...
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Sheila, that's great. Yeah. Thank you. If anything else comes, just put your hand up. I'll know you want to speak.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Baba. And Betty. I think Betty has some things that she remembers. Go ahead.
Anne came out west to give a talk to our Northern California group. I hadn't known her before, and one of the things that she had expressed was that she wanted to see Yosemite National Park. So our good friend Laura Hogan and I took her when it went on this, I don't know, I guess I'd call it a madcap. There was always a thermos of coffee necessary. We had, and, it was just a gals on the go adventure. It was really wonderful. I guess later we learned that we we probably should have tried to time it. So we used her up basically. We had a grand time. She loved it, but she came back a little tired, and the group was a bit mad at us for you know, having all the fun with it. But anyway, it's so back to the trip. She the one, you know, the feeling, I hadn't known her, of course. She and Laura were old friends. Man, they were buddies. They just, you could tell there was a great friendship there. And the feeling I got about Anne was that she told stories about work. She was like the ace reporter. This was her calling was journalism. And she told about one episode where she was in New York, and it was horse country, and there were sort of wealthy type folks who were racers and had stables of racehorses, and she was called out to. There was one stable that had caught on fire, and so she ran out there with her camera and was reporting on it. And she told about this moment where this wealthy owner of the stables and it was either a jockey or a foreman or somebody like that was the man was in tears, and his foreman was comforting him. And she said, I had my camera, I whirled around, I got the photo. You got this photo with the fire in the background and the two men and the consolation, and it was like a Pulitzer Prize moment as far as she was concerned. It was really, you just got the feeling that her journalism was really important to her. just looking at that movie, she just was such a grand partner in an adventure. She loved Yosemite. She sat out. She was we were we were in a cabin. She wanted to. We said, Anne, you want to come walk? No, she said, no, I'm going to sit and look at the rock. She said, you go, you girls go. I'm just going to sit here and enjoy the rock. um, so, um, yeah, well, really, my memory of Anne was that trip. She was just a grand, she was fun. She was a pal. She was a great person to be with. Um, yeah, and apologize to the yeah, Laura and I were saying, oh my gosh, we so apologize to the group, you guys, Alan and Karen. We she did, yeah, she was she was a great traveling companion. So that's about it.
Sounds wonderful. Thank you, Betty. Susan, J Baba.
Anne was, for me, she was a confidant. I would have dinner with her about every time when I would visit Myrtle Beach, which was about once a year for many years. And I was thinking that she was sort of like a synthesis of opposites, and I'm going to read, I wrote down some of this, so I'll just read it. She was vulnerable but tough. She was loving without pandering. She was shy but gregarious. She was opinionated but humble. She was funny but serious. She was creative but a taken care of business kind of person. There's probably more. And she was, I mean, to me, she was the best of the best. She was just a terrific person. And I mean, so sincere. I mean, you know, she gushed about Baba like everyone else did, but she really meant it. She never said a word that she didn't mean. And just a couple things, you know, that I learned about her. People mentioned she was writing about Margaret Crass, but she also talked about writing or wanting to write a book about a spiritual community that would sort of be a spoof on a spiritual community about you know what. And I really don't know if she ever started it, and I don't know if there's any evidence of it, but I would really love to know it. Also, in the years when she was running the center, it wasn't always easy for her. She butt heads with Jane Haynes. Anne was a lot more liberal. And I know one thing Anne wanted that they have now for couples who were together but not necessarily married to be able to stay in the same cabin, that kind of thing. So it wasn't always easy for her. She was a real fighter. She was the kind of person, though, you know, if there was any complaint about the center, it was taken care of like before it was out of your mouth. And I think my only criticism of her is, well, the smoking. And I remember when she told me that about having lung cancer, she told me she was fine with it. And I was not fine with it. And so I'm still mad at her about that. I wish we still had her. J Baba.
J Baba. Susan, thank you for such a beautiful tribute. I'm so glad you took a moment to write things down because it just kind of hit the nail on the head for me. I was there. I was a smoker. So she and I smoked together, and that kind of gave us some kind of a common ground that other people probably didn't have. We could kind of drift off somewhere to have a cigarette. The other thing was I remember bringing two men friends of mine to the center who were kind of fringe people. Let's just call them fringe people. And the most fortunate thing was that we were in the refectory and in walked Anne Conlon. I think this was 74. She was working at the center. And we sat down at the table. And I think Kitty had, I don't know how this happened, but Kitty had said, ask Anne, oh, Anne's on tonight. Ask her to tell you her story about coming to Baba. So the four of us sat down at a table and Anne told her story. And for these men, I mean, this was manna. This was water from the well. It's just the way she was. And they related totally to that completely authentic woman that she was. But she asked me to go get something, and I had to go down the path, and but I had to leave the refectory, go down near the far cabin, near cabin something. I don't remember, maybe to the phone even. And I remember being scared to death. It was like, I don't know why, I was just scared. I thought I would run into a snake, or I don't know what it was, but I just left there and I started running down with my flashlight in this terrible fear. And as I'm going, I'm saying, oh, please, Baba, please, Baba, please, Baba. And by the time I hit the cabin, I realized that I was saying, please, Baba. And to please Baba meant to let go of that fear. So I always remember that around Anne Conlon for some reason, because it was some duty she sent me off to do that gave me that understanding of trying to please Baba about my own fears and weaknesses, whatever they are. So anyway, that's what I wanted to share. And I see Alan's got his hand up. Jai Baba, Alan.
Jai Baba. First off, I'd like to accept Betty's apology for the Northern California group. I think this is 35 years later, if I'm not mistaken. And I've been wondering all those years why Anne Conlon wasn't as spunky as she could have been that evening. And now we finally find out. So Betty, you're forgiven. That might be the only fault you ever did in your whole life. If you see Laura Hogan at the center, tell her she's not forgiven. No, I'll tell her that myself if I see her. As for Anne Conlon, she was spectacular, I thought. I guess I met her when she moved to the center. I would come before I was married, certainly. I was in a way smart. I always found out who met Baba and made friends with him immediately. I figured if you're going to utilize your time efficiently, utilize it with people who have the goods, and Anne definitely had the goods. So I would take her out to lunch or dinner or whatever was available on her calendar, and I would take her to wherever she liked to go. There weren't that many places back in the 70s, as I recall. And I did notice, like Susan mentioned, that she smoked. I thought that was interesting. People did smoke back in the 70s, even in Northern California. We had people who smoked. It was not uncommon. I thought it interesting she smoked while we were eating, but I just forgave everything because she was fantastic. And basically our time together was, I have no memory of anything specific except we would just laugh. We would tell jokes and tell stories. And it's kind of like being with Sheila. You just say anything and she'll laugh. And that's the best thing there is in the world. You don't really have to do anything too much. Betty, it's okay. You can accept my apology or acceptance of your apology. You don't have to recap on it. But that was my memory of Anne, that she was just a terrific person and more wonderful. And I didn't realize she died in 2005. I guess after I got married, I didn't want to go out with her. I assume I told Karen I'm going to go out to lunch with Anne because I remember it constantly. But things occur, and I had kids and was busy and that kind of thing. So maybe didn't see her as much as I could. And but I really do cherish all the time I spent with her, the hours over the years, and appreciate how beautiful and pleasing she was. As I'm talking, I'm seeing that laugh. It is round and full and joyful. And it seemed like anything I could say or anything she could say, we would just laugh. It didn't even matter what was said. The details are irrelevant. She just laughed at anything. So she was very, very loving. And as I'm talking, Aunt Conlon's love is filling my heart. Jay Baba.
Jay Baba Ellen. Sheila? Go ahead.
Yes, Susan, when you were talking, I was remembering that Anne did do a lot of writing about the Baba community. It was in a blog on the Sheriar Books website called All Baba Things Considered, which was the title she gave it. And she had some hysterical things written on there and some very insightful things, you know. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah,
There. And all of the art, it's all archived there. You can read it all.
yeah, great reminder, Sheila. I forgot. Yeah, that's when it started, right?
Oh yeah, we were having dinner with Andy, and out of the blue, he said to her, "What about writing little essays, you know?" And she took it up right away and just did it and ran with it, and it was something she really wanted to do.
Yeah, excuse me. A lot of the early books I remember reading, the forewords were written by Anne Conlon.
That's right. I think she wrote the Kitty's book, but I'm not sure. And of course,
too.
She edited Rano's book and had a lot to do with a lot of the books. In fact, if I had to design the book, since I'm not a reader, I would ask her to tell me what the book was about. You know, design it. Yeah. Which I miss very much now.
Oh, I hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you two seem to be hand in glove. You worked so well together.
Yeah.
For us, we were so grateful in those days to get all those early books.
Rano's book was amazing. Andy got very sick then. He was in the hospital with some respiratory thing. So he was out of the picture, and he was always a very big part of the bookmaking. And but everything we did together on that book worked out really well.
Yes. Yes, we did. We took a good look at that when we were remembering Rano a few months back.
I think I wrote to Rano about it, that Rano's drawings in the back of the book, they were called duotones. They were black on gray. They were two colors actually to make them fuller. And they took a lot of work, and there was only one guy at the press that could do it well. And we were slammed with commercial work. And then a week opened up, he did it all, and then the work came back again. And I remember that was the flavor of that whole book.
That's great.
That's it.
Yeah, great story. Thank you so much. Rosalie? Jay Baba.
Hi, Jay Baba. I wanted to show Anne's hat because I got it at her garage sale. And I mean, it just showed that a woman in the world who's serious about her career, you know. And my memory of Anne is she had humor in her bones, because I love especially humor. And what's one other thing? I went to her cremation, and because of the humor thing and because she just seemed very Irish, I think she was, I shared a couple of Irish sayings. One is just a one-liner. May no burden ever after be too much for you. And the other one was, as ye slide down the banister of life, let no sliver point the wrong direction. Anyway, I thought she would enjoy that because she had a great sense of humor. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Rosalie. You're right. There, I can just hear her laugh as well. Her laugh was all her own.
She had a kind laugh. You know, actually, it was wild. She reminded me of like a Catholic nun. I mean, the kind you want to hang out around, because she had that sense of humor, not the punitive ones, no. But yeah, she was a gem.
She was a gem, a grand lady. We were so fortunate. Betty, did you want to share some more?
Couple of things. I remember I think it's the troubles at the center had happened, and we asked her about it, and I just remember her saying, well, she said, when things get really agitated, this was like, and she's talking about board meetings, she said, I get very quiet. I remember saying that was wise. She was wise in her ways with people. And the other thing I want to mention, not once in this whole meeting has the subject of that whole slaps, the twins dressing up as Anne Conlon, which of course had nothing to do with Anne, except.
We have something for you, Betty. Don't worry.
Good. Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I was going to actually bring it up when you were finished.
Oh, okay.
Because I think, Karen, did you want to go ahead, and you had some things you wanted to say first, and then we're going to show a little bit of that film.
Okay, Anne said she first actually heard the story about Sohrab in 1971. No one knew exactly when Anne would arrive. In those days, they really didn't get that information. So every day Baba would say, is Anne coming? Is Anne coming? And Erich didn't know. So Rustam and Sohrab will explain all this. But the other things, I just want to point out a few things, is that, and this is from her talk at the LA Sahavas, Baba wanted everybody to meet Anne Conlon, AKA Sohrab. And so he called all the people at Bindra House and told them that they were to stop what they were doing and rush over to Guru Prasad to meet Anne Conlon. And they were cooking, but no, it was an order from Baba. So they turned off their stoves and they came in their aprons. Another story she talked about was that Francis Brabazon was there at the time in India, and he introduced Anne Sohrab to Naraman Dadachandji. So when Anne came and Francis reintroduced the real Anne to Naraman, Naraman said, oh, I've already met her. So those are just a few introductions. And what she said was that Baba loved to laugh, and she felt that Rustam and Sohrab truly made him laugh. So now we can watch this.
Before she does, I want to, we went into emergency mode, and I want to thank Charlie McReynolds of the LA group. I had contacted John, actually I had contacted Sohrab to see if he wanted to tell this story. He said, see if he could find a YouTube, because he's so shy, you know. And so I contacted John Page, who knows everything, who contacted Charlie McReynolds, who even knows more than John Page. And he found numerous YouTubes of the twins speaking at the Southern California group. And this is from volume 1 of that first long talk of the Savas, year to be determined. And it's a minute 50 to minute 60 of that talk. Anyway, I just want to give the backdrop and thanks to Charlie and John and Saurabh for the story, and Rustam too. I talked to about it. Yeah, Bob.
किसी को यज़दा के दरी की मिट्टी, किसी को याकुत लाल होना है, किसी को यज़दा के दरी की मिट्टी, किसी को याकुत लाल होना है। मेहर को कहता है खाकी हुमा, मेहर को कहता है खाकी हुमा, हमें तो रब्बुल जलाल होना, हमें तो रब्बुल जलाल हो बाबा, हमें तो रब्बुल जलाल होना। लिखन पढ़न से नैयारबाजी, लिखन पढ़न से नैयारबाजी, सनम का हरदम ख्याल होना, सनम का हरदम ख्याल होना, सनम का हरदम ख्याल होना। जय बाबा, जय बाबा। How are we doing on time?
15 minutes.
15 minutes more. Okay. गुरु प्रसाद का कौन सा स्टोरी? एंड कॉनलिन का ओके भाव।
Did Baba write the melody for that song?
Yes, that's what Mani said. Yeah. Well, Bauji wants us to tell the story of Anne Conlon. And it was the time in Guru Prasad when Baba was in seclusion, but of course he had given permission to Anne Conlon to come and visit him. In those days, it's not like the planes today that they come in time and there's direct flights and this and that. So nobody was really very sure exactly what date she was going to come to Guru Prasad. So Baba would say to Iraj, is Anne Conlon coming today? And Iraj would say, Baba, I think that she should be arriving today. That today would go and she never came. Then again the next day, Baba,
When is Anne Conlon?
where is Anne Conlon? She's not yet come. So Iraj said, Baba, she's expected any day now. Oh, is that so? So when 2 days was going on like this, so Rustam and I just said, Baba is so anxious to see Anne Conlon. He's asking for last 2 days, Anne Conlon. I said, in the morning, I said, let you get me dressed up as Anne Conlon, and I will go to Baba as Anne Conlon. It will be a nice entertainment, for Baba. He'll laugh and, it'll be great. So I go to my sister Gulnar, and I say, Gulnar, I want your best dress and all the things that the girl use, I want to dress up as a girl. She says, are you gone mad? I said, no, I'm not gone mad, but I'm just going to entertain Baba. So Rustam and I are going to go. I'm going to get dressed up as Anne Conlon. So she gives me her dress and her, bangles, earrings, and this, and high heel shoes, and all the stuff, lipstick and handbag, and I do a little fringe cut on my hair. I had long hair then, and put a scarf around, and perfect, like a Western lady, I dress up. And then I tell Rustam, now get a taxi. So Rustam goes and gets a taxi. We both get inside the taxi, and we tell the taxi driver, Guru Prasad leke jao, take us to Guru Prasad. And the taxi driver was a Muslim, an Orthodox guy, So he was sitting and driving. And meanwhile, something shifted, and Rustam was trying to adjust me in the right way. And that guy was looking at the... Hey, tum kya karta hai? What are you doing? Rustam said, no, I'm not doing anything. He's my brother. Oh, brother? Yeah, he's dressed up as a woman and we are going to take part in a play, and I was just seeing that, adjusting. Oh, he started laughing himself. And then he takes us and puts us at the gate of Guru Prasad, and I tell Rustam, now you go ahead, walk towards the Mandli room and make an announcement that Anne Conlon has come. So
I go running. Saurabh is coming.
And then I start walking, with my handbag.
I go, and I go and I see Era sitting at the door, and all the Mandli were there sitting there. So as soon as I get on the steps, I said, Era, Anne Conlon has come. And Era said, Anne Conlon has come. Anne Conlon. Baba Anne Conlon has come. And then Era told me later, he rushed to Baba, and to put his sadra down, because in the summer Baba would have his sadra up on his knees. So Eras put the Baba sadra down, and he's picking his very slippers and cleaning his sweat and all that. And I put my head inside, Jai Baba! And Eras comes running, to me and pushes me back. No, you cannot come, Anne, you cannot come. No, I would like to see Baba right now. I want to see him. No, but you have to wait till Baba is ready for you. No, and I look at Baba, and Baba looks at me. Instantly, he recognizes that this is Saurabh. Eras, who's so close to me, is stopping me from coming inside, doesn't know that it's me. He thinks it's Anne Conlon. And then Baba, he himself, is the world's greatest actor of all, he starts acting with me now. And then Eras tells me later that after some time Baba winks at him. And Eras says, I don't know why Baba winked at me. But then I realized and looked close and I knew that it was you. So now Baba, myself and Eras are all three in the act. So Baba tells Eras, no, let her come in. So I go down running to Baba, I bend down to his feet. Baba, touches me on the cheeks. Yes, sit down. So I fold my legs and sit in front of Baba. And then Baba, as usual, he would ask everybody who would come, did you sleep well? Oh, Baba, yes, I just slept like a log. I was so tired, Baba. Oh, good. Did you eat food? I did eat some food, but a little spicy, Baba. Oh, yes. Baba went along with that. And after some questions, he told Eras, now introduce Anne Conlon to the Mandli. But the best part is I'm sitting there and no one misses Saurabh.
That's amazing,
That's amazing.
And only Baba could bring about that, But like a first person is Pendu there, and Eras says, this is Pendu, is Anne Conlon. Jai Baba Pendu. Oh, Jai Baba Pendu does, And this is Aloba. Jai Baba Aloba. Yes, very good. Aloba. Mayorji Karkaria. Everybody's introduced, Bauji was there too. Bauji was introduced too, and nobody recognizes me. Nobody. And then Baba claps and calls Dr. Gover. And Dr. Gover comes. Baba says, Baba tells her that Anne Conlon has come from America. Take her now to the woman Mandli side and introduce her to all the women. And when Baba said that, my hands and legs started shaking, I was shivering now, Baba said, go with Gover. He introduced you to Mera. I hadn't seen Mera for, I don't even remember as a little boy, because Mera was all the time out on tours with Baba. And I didn't remember a face. And here I was like 17 years old, 16 years old. And first time I was to see Mera, because Mera would not be allowed to be meant to see her. And now Baba is asking me to go and see Mera and money and all that. And I'm really, nervous about it. And Gover says, okay, Anne, now come follow me. And I go behind her, The first person to come is Rano Gailey. Rano, this is Anne Conlon. She's come from America. Jai Baba Anne. Jai Baba Rano. Kisses me on the cheeks. She doesn't know anything, And then Naja comes, Meru comes, Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Meru, Jai Baba, everybody. My aunt Mani, whom Rustam and I are so close, like magnets, she doesn't recognize. She says, Jai Baba, and Jai Baba, Jai Baba, Mani, oh, I must so much wanted to see you. And then Mera comes. When I see her, I forget. All senses go away. I don't even know where I'm existing, I'm just the beauty of a form and a face, the bright light that came out of her face. It was just divinity itself, And I was standing there paralyzed, just, looking at her. And she was coming closer and closer, and I said, Baba, if she comes and she hugs me, what am I going to do? How will I, what should I do? Should I reveal myself? And
Just as she's coming closer to me, Mani runs behind her and says something to her in her ears. And she stopped there, right 3 feet away from me. And she says, Jai Baba, and Jai Baba. At the same time, Baba comes in. And Baba looks at them and says, do you know this is Anne Conlon? This is not Anne Conlon. You all taken for a ride. And then I'm so happy when Baba says that. I take out my scarf, my earrings, and this is Saurabh. And they have a laugh, and they laugh all day. And then Mani tells me later on that she stopped Mera because she recognized me later on when she saw the handbag that I had, which she had given as a birthday gift to my sister. So when she saw that, she knew that this is not Anne Conlon, this is Saurabh. And she stopped Mera and told her that Baba sent an instruction that you should not hug Anne Conlon because she's come back with a very bad cold. So you should from far away say. And the funny thing is, next day Anne Conlon came, you know. And for the first time, when I told this story in Myrtle Beach in '84, Anne Conlon was sitting there. And she laughed so much. She had not known about this. And she says, no wonder, you know, when I just entered the Mandli hall and had Baba's darshan, I looked at the Mandli, they all had a grin. And
if you see Anne Conlon today, she looks like him.
Yeah.
Great. Alan, thank you. That was wonderful. Thank you for bringing that. All right. Well, just looking to see if anybody else would like to share anything. If not, we'll take a moment of silence and then we can come back and I'll say our Ki Jays for Baba. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate everything that was brought today in remembrance of this wonderful soul of Baba's. So, Jai Baba. Jai Baba. If you'd like to unmute. Avatar Meher Baba.
Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar
Meher
Baba
Baba.
Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Jai Baba, Alan Karen.
Did you see your head there in the talk by Rustam and Saurabh?
Yes, I did. I loved it.
That was you in the front row.
Wonderful.
Head poking up.
All right. Thank you. That was just great.
Yeah. That had to be done. Sue Chapman. Look at Sue Chapman.
Hi, Sue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I think Anne would have loved that so much. I could almost hear her laughing when the twins were talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm glad we got the tape. I don't think it's 1987 though, because they talk about Mani's passing in the tape. So we're working on correcting that maybe. Anyway.
No problem.
Thanks,
wonderful.
A delightful, wonderful sharing. And it's as if we had Anne right here with us, seeing the original, the earliest film that we saw. Thanks. It's delighted my heart.
Mine too. Yeah, we don't have too many people that can laugh like Anne Conlon.
Go ahead. Did you hear about that instance of the imitation of Anne?
Not when I was younger, no. I heard it just via Zoom lately, the last year or so. I had no idea, but I have so enjoyed that. That's the only thing that came to my mind about Anne, because I had never really met her and known her. But this incident, stayed with me all the way. I was just about to bring it up, and then you mentioned it anyway. So it was lovely, just lovely to hear all the sharing, and enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye, Baba.
Delightful.
Everyone was terrific.
Freddie